First wanted to thank James, PJ, and Philip. Obviously, great competitors for us. But today's about the new guys. We're very excited for who we're bringing in. Obviously, folks know Robert Covington, quite a fun reunion for myself as well. I think part of Sixers lore. I was amazed. He's like second in made 3-pointers. I just talked to him. He's about to go. He's like, I'm breaking that record. So let's have that. Nic Tatum, someone I've gone against in the playoffs, and he's gotten the better of me some, and we've gotten the better of him some. He's gonna add a lot to the team with his connectivity. KJ Martin, young, up and coming player. Love what he can provide, especially the way Coach Nurse has us playing in transition. And Marcus Morris, obviously another reunion of sorts. Seems like one of the guys most famously from Philadelphia in the league because he's so proud of his roots. So we love how I love how the team's playing. Obviously, very early. And we try to not get too high or too low during a season, but a good start. Coach Nurse has had them focused from day one, starting in Fort Collins, and we've kind of come out of the gate playing strong. And I really want to thank the players and the coaching staff. A lot of professionalism throughout. Some of this was tough at times, and to have them come out and play as well as they've had has been really positive. Look, we're really excited for what this trade brings as well in terms of our ability to keep improving the team going forward, both in the draft capital we got that we thought was extremely important for our ability to keep improving and being a championship caliber team. Very encouraged that we were able to get what we had we set a bar in June, really, when James requested the trade and said, look, if we can get it to here, that should be what generally allows you to go out and get a player. And having a player like Drew go for a similar package was sort of validating on that. So we set that bar, and obviously it came together where the Clippers met that price, and so that's why the trade happened when it did. So I love that now everyone can get to focus on our game Thursday, and a bunch of tough battles, a lot of tough opponents. See how Tyrese flourishes. I know Joel's excited with how he's playing and expanding his game, which he's been excited since Coach Nurse has been here, and what the different versatile ways that Coach Nurse is going to use him. And then Tobias has been flourishing as well. DeAnthony, I could go through the whole roster. So very excited at both how we're playing. We're gonna see how this roster evolves. Coach Nurse has a lot of decisions on who to play, how to use them, see where the gaps are, and then now we have a good asset base and a lot of flexibility into next season as well to keep improving the team. So, this is where once James requested a trade, this is where we were hoping to end up. Obviously, it would have been nice if it happened a little earlier, but you can't push the timing on these. So, thanks so much. Questions?
Did Tyrese's, the way he's been playing the first 3 games, did that help expedite the trade, so to speak? I know you got what you wanted, but also that you got a guy moving forward who can be a star.
Yeah, so it actually didn't. We sort of set this bar, and we were probably a little too public, just because this played out a little more public than I think either side would have liked. But I think it was pretty well known what we were targeting. We're very excited how Tyrese and Joel and the team is playing. But look, it's 82 games. It's a real mistake to make any decisions after 3 games, so we really work hard to avoid that. So we're excited how he's playing, but this was really about the Clippers hitting the price we needed for this trade.
You just kind of alluded to it because of how everything played out so publicly, but I guess, like, is there sort of a relief for you to kind of get this over with, and how you just mentioned you guys can move on to the games and things like that?
Yeah, no one should worry about me, but I think for our fan base, who, you know, it was very exciting, our first home game, and just to see how much the fans were behind us. I mean, we have the best fans. I think we've seen that recently with some great playoff runs with the Philly. Like, we have a great fan base, and to see them behind us, I actually was a little like wondering, because we were in the middle of obviously this very public trade request. But the fact that they were behind us was really awesome, and I think for our fans, you know, now they see, okay, hey, this is our group. It's Joel, it's Tyrese, it's Tobias, it's Melt, it's like the young players we have, it's the great vets we have. You know, I could name all of them, Pat. You know, these guys that have really come in and contributed right away, and now a bunch of new vets and young players that could help. So really for me, it's for the fans, like, that it clearly, like, more than I anticipated, because look, I have to have one focus in this job, which is what gives us a chance to win the title. And I have to really, I know people, I have to keep the noise out, because otherwise I'll be hurting Joel, I'll be hurting our fans, that I'm not, and the whole front office, this is just me, that I'm not doing the job that needed to be done. And so, yeah, I was a little concerned about how the fans would react while we were in the middle, but I was very appreciative that that first home game was pretty validating that the fans are going to be behind us.
Daryl, were you injured by James calling you a liar by being this public?
Like, did I pull a hammy or something or something? Sorry.
Were your feelings hurt when James, who you helped rise to the position he's risen to, did what he did to you? Has there been any reconciliation? Have you guys talked? Where does your relationship stand with him, and how did you react to that?
Look, I think time heals. Look, he wanted to be traded, and we did. We did follow through on what he wanted. I sort of addressed this in the opening of the press conference of the season. I think, I think he chose to handle things certain ways that I wouldn't have. He might feel the same on us, that we should have moved quicker, whatever. Look, he's a great player. He's going to do great things for the Clippers. PJ Tucker as well. I'm glad they're in the West. We wish him well. Had a long run with him, as you said. I think this will just be a blip, and something something that we won't remember when we're at James's Hall of Fame induction someday. And again, I don't, like, honestly, there's always questions like, how do I feel? Like, who cares? Like, honestly, like the fans should care about, do we win games? Are we on our path to win a championship? Like, it's not about me. It's never should be about anyone in the front office. It's about the players and winning games and winning the title.
So 2 years later, was this a good trade? Do you regret having made the move you made to acquire James? The franchise didn't move forward appreciably, and there's been a lot of noise, as you called it, as a result.
I think we didn't make it far enough, so almost by definition, once you know the outcome wasn't what we want, you say, hey, was there something different? In this case, I think with the information we had at the time, which is, I think, how you can judge things, it was a very good trade. Obviously, we're in a tough situation then, and when you're in that and you jump to something, you want to continue to give yourself a chance to win, just like this trade did. Obviously, this one still is to be written a little bit with, like, some of the assets we got. But when you're in a tough situation, now I'm referencing the original trade that brought James here, often you have to take a bet, right? And that bet won't be perfect because you're exiting a tough situation. This bet I thought was very good. I continue to think it was the right bet. Obviously, we got to closer. I mean, I'm not be clear, I'm not giving ourselves any credit here, but we got closer to advancing than we had. We were up 3-2 against Boston, and look, we wanted to make it farther. So clearly, once you know the outcome isn't a title, you should think about only being good at my job requires me to go back and think, were there any different paths to take? I don't see any, knowing all the things that were available. So I think it was the right bet, and we'd do the same thing. But I think it's a reasonable question. I appreciate it.
I recognize you're saying, who cares how you feel? It's about the team. But because you think so highly of James, how difficult was it to get to this point to where you essentially had to trade him?
It wasn't difficult because, we had a conversation early where he said he wanted to be traded. I said we would work for it. So at that point, I know my mission, right, is to trade him. But I had to do it in a way that was appropriate and helped this team continue to move forward to win a championship. So it wasn't actually difficult because it was what I committed to do, and so we did it.
I know you mentioned just that the Clippers coming with the package they did, that dictated the timing of this happening, but given the uncertainty of the last couple of weeks with James coming, James leaving, James coming back, was there any concern about, okay, this could get wonky and I might need to up the sense of urgency, or is that where that tunnel vision that you're talking about comes in?
Well, I think it was tunnel vision, to be fair, but I think, look, I also have to take feedback from players, coaches, things like that, and frankly, I know it's been reported and no one got to see our days in Fort Collins or even here, but those issues, and I think Coach Nurse has addressed it a bunch, really never rose to anything that we were concerned about, and we felt very comfortable that if needed, and we needed to wait for later and more players to be tradable, we were very comfortable doing that if we couldn't get what we had said we had to get. And so, no, look, if it had rose to that, it's my job to look at that, but it really never did. And look, I understand that we created a lot of content for the Blogga Exa Twitter sphere or whatever it is. So I get that, but I can tell you, and I think Nick talked about it in our players, it really never was here. It never was here. And in terms of the pressure that was applied, it was always other stuff, the earlier question I got, did that bother? It was always that other stuff. But to be fair to our players, they never felt it here, is my understanding, unless you've heard different.
But you said the one thing, I'm sorry, the one thing that you did say is, I know you said very public, but there was a player on that roster that you said that was the holdup, and you didn't get that player. So what changed with that one?
Well, I think we're pretty clear, although maybe it wasn't. So we had to get another player or another first, and we did get that. So
Do you think with this roster now, you're a championship contender and can compete with the Bucks, the Celtics, or do you think that you'd have to make another move with some of the assets that you got?
Look, I think you saw against Milwaukee, we can hang with anyone. I will say, part of becoming a great team and a championship team is to be realistic. Look, there's some very tough competitors in the East, Boston and Milwaukee, who we just played in particular. I said earlier in my opening press conference, let's let it play out. Look, right here as I sit now, I'm not willing to concede anything to them, but you ask 100 people, they'd say they're better than us right now. So let's see how it plays out, see where our weaknesses are. Now we have assets and the ability to address any issues, and we will address those if we see them. But look, let's see how it plays out, and we'll show our fans in the marketplace if we're a championship contender based on our play. If we keep winning 2 out of 3 games against good opponents, we will be. If we don't, then we'll have to adjust that.
Piggybacking off that a little bit, you said before with the James trade, you either wanted to get a star player or assets in order to
Correct.
get that. Could Tyrese change that calculus if he kind of continues on this trajectory where maybe you're looking for a very good player that fits very well with Maxey and Embiid?
Look, I think we're just looking for the best we can get as we assess our needs over time. Obviously, Tyrese, his first 3 games, I don't think it tells you like where he's going to end up. I would want to limit him or say he's there, right? Because it's 3 games. But he for sure didn't like dispel any notion that he has that chance, which is exciting for him. And it shows the work he put in and Joel has put in. I think you've seen him expand his game as well. That work they put in, we're seeing on the floor. And so, yes, absolutely, if Tyrese gets to that all-star level, which he for sure looks like he has a very solid chance to be, I wouldn't say it changes our calculus on what we need. I think it changes our odds of winning the title. Like if he becomes that good, now these assets are filling in and, could be our 3rd best player or 4th best player, right? And we love how these vets all mesh and we think Tobias and D'Anthony are real anchor guys for us as well. So
Daryl, part of my earlier questions,
Yeah.
you didn't really get to, I think.
Sure.
Well, how would you characterize your relationship with James himself right now? Has there been any sort of reconciliation? Have you guys talked? How would you characterize your relationship?
I honestly feel like that's between us. I mean, I appreciate you have to ask that question, but I think that's between us, and he's on a different team, so I'm going to say not germane.
There's a lot of noise out there about Joel and that teams are monitoring. Is Joel happy and all that? Did you run by him this particular trade, and is he happy with the current situation now?
Is he happy is a question for Joel, but look, I can just tell you our relationship and his relationship with the front office, ownership, coach, nurse is extremely strong. It's been the Joel stuff that's like really competitors as far as we can tell, trying to generate that. In terms of like Joel is a very smart player. He's obviously the cornerstone as the MVP of the league. We always keep him aware of what we're planning. He's very comfortable in the approach we're taking, and he feels like it gives us the best chance to win. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Take a few more guys.
While the Clippers met the bar, how accurate is the reporting that ownership on both sides were involved to make this trade happen?
Yeah, so look, everyone knows that ownership is involved in trades at every team. The teams that say the opposite aren't truthful is just the bottom line. So this ownership, I can only speak to my side. I don't really know how much their side was involved. So on our side was straightforward, the same, always keeping them abreast of our plans, making recommendations for when we make trades, and they signed off on them. But it was a very standard trade, so that was I didn't quite follow that reporting.
You mentioned seeing KJ as an up-and-coming player. These 4 guys you added are on expiring contracts. Just how is that process going to work as far as internal evaluation and thinking about who currently on the roster could be a long-term piece here?
Yeah, so I think for cap space, people think about it in this sort of more narrow way, right? So ideally, we would actually sort of use that cap space early. That's generally better especially under the. That's generally better because then you both have the front end flexibility, and then the back end to re-sign them flexibility, and then you can see who becomes available. So we, in the parlance of how teams talk, we would like to use it early if we can, in terms of acquiring the people we might re-sign or bring back early. It gives you more flexibility. That said, the nice thing is we do have the back end optionality that if we don't use it early on players we want to re-sign or have longer deals, then what we want to do is go after the best players who are in free agency, which people are too down on. Like, it's not the year that, famous years like 2011 or whatever, but it's also it's a normal free agency year with quite a few good players that we'd be excited about if they became available.
I know you said you wanted to keep the stuff between you and James, but I guess what sort of regrets do you have about your part in how things played out this summer, given that you did have 10 years together and your careers have been tied at the hip for most of that last decade?
Yeah, I feel like it never got to that point where if there's anything that it got to the point where he wanted to leave, that I wish it hadn't gotten to that. I do think, based on what I know, it was unavoidable. but it got to the place where he wanted to leave. I didn't think that was great. But once he got there, that's where we said, okay, now let's go do what gives us the best chance to win here. So.
Well, a lot of people assume. A lot of people assume that because of a relationship, you might not act in what most people thought was the best interests of the Sixers. You would sign an older guy to a long-term max deal. Can you give us sort of maybe a timeline insight into how you evaluated sort of what James was worth? How much and how long you were willing to commit to him, that sort of thing, because outside of Joel, he's probably the most significant player that's been here in 15, 20 years, and just like everybody kind of assumed that he was going to get this just gigantic deal, and you didn't do it.
Yeah, so sincerely, it never got to it. That was what I was attempting to answer here, is that we never got to the point where we were offered. He chose to opt in and say he wanted to go before we got to the moment where we were making those decisions. Look, I'm not naively saying he felt like maybe the direction was going in a way that he didn't feel like it was going to turn out how he wanted when we were going to get that opportunity, but it truly never got to the point where we were going to sit down and say, here's what we'll do. So we never got that opportunity. So that's, to me, that's more the issue that was, would have been nice if it could have been different, right? So
Thank you, Daryl. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.